crossroad. A crossroad, a choice point. Where are we going to go? What direction are we going to take? Left, right, ahead, turn around? What's it going to be? What's going to be there in front of us? Are we going to be standing there frozen in our spot, or are we going to decide which way to go? And what awaits us down each direction we choose? Where will we go? Will we go where our heart follows us? Which way makes sense? Which way is God's way? These answers aren't easy. A crossroad can become a very daunting spiritual episode, event. And it can bring us to our knees. It can even bring us to our destruction. Tonight, we interview another expert that went down a crossroad. They came across a crossroad and experienced it in his life. He saw a choice that changed his life, and so now tonight we welcome him. Greetings, Malchus.
Thank you.
Glad you came here tonight to sit down and visit with us a little bit. Could you start out by just kind of sharing some things about yourself so we can get to understand who you are?
Yeah. Big audience tonight,
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm not an important person.
Okay.
I was never one to call attention to myself. I was a simple servant and guard in the service of the high priest. It was not a glamorous job. I got along. I did my job.
Okay.
I don't really deserve to be in the spotlight. The only thing I have to tell is how my life changed by a simple act of kindness.
You said that you're not that important, though, but it seems like you became important in the story and the character of Jesus. Could you share with us?
I remember seeing Jesus that night in the garden, but I had seen him before. I went with the Pharisees and other leaders many times when they questioned Jesus.
Okay.
When they were looking to find something to use against him.
Well, how did you feel about that then? I mean, you're sharing with us what you saw, but how did you feel about it? How the way they approached him?
I didn't mind it at first. It was easy to go along to find Jesus. In a way, it was better than standing around in the council or slaving for that high priest in that house.
Okay. How about your attitude? What about your attitude? Did something happen or change with your attitude then?
I heard Jesus' answers.
Okay.
I saw how he dealt with people in need. It began to trouble me that the leaders were so dead against him. I didn't see anything wrong in what he did or said.
Okay.
I guess they thought he was some kind of a threat. Certainly, the word got around that his followers wanted to make him a king, to start a revolt, to kick out the Romans.
Okay, then. How'd that make you feel? What'd you feel about that?
Well, I certainly don't have love for the Romans.
Okay, touche.
They oppressed us. Treated us like slaves. But I wasn't sure what kind of job if Jesus' followers were successful in putting him on some kind of a throne.
Okay.
I wasn't sure how I felt about it.
And yet, though, you still went with the religious leaders then. You went there to arrest him in the garden, right?
It was my job.
Let me ask you, can I ask you, you mind if I ask you, I'm just going to ask you, were you afraid?
Afraid? No. I was trained as a guard for the military.
Okay.
I knew how to protect myself. I knew how to strike with a sword. If it came to that, I lived in kind of a world. In my world, you stood up for yourself. You struck back if you were assaulted.
Okay.
You struck first if you had a chance. I lived in a world where every man was for himself. I knew Jesus. I heard him speak. But I thought that when he came down to it, he and his followers would fight. And I was ready. And yet something happened that night that changed me. As I expected, one of the followers, I heard later it was Peter,
Okay.
lashed out with a sword and cut off my ear.
And yet, you stopped.
Yeah. Jesus held up his hand. And I thought he might call on the rest of the followers to strike. But his voice was quiet, gentle almost. I could not move. Jesus reached out his hand towards me. I thought he was going to grab me or hit me, because that's something I would do.
Yeah.
But the great care, simple touch, my ear, instantly, it was healed.
And that touch then, his touch changed you?
No, he touched my ear.
Oh, it touched his ear.
Yeah, my ear.
Right there.
But in the most important way, he touched my spirit. He was the one who had the power to strike back, to respond the way I was trained to respond. And yet, he chose to heal, to care, to love. If you will, suddenly I saw my life in a different way. It was like a light went on in my spirit. I saw someone live in a way I could not understand.
The light. I want to have you talk about, could you talk about this light that you're talking about?
Well, it was like I looked at my whole life. I saw each time I took advantage of another, struck another, hurt another person. I saw the struggles in my life had been with choices I had made to go ahead. At least that's what I saw. And suddenly, it all seemed dark and empty. I saw a different way to live.
Okay, so how has that changed you then?
Well, I'm not much good as a guard anymore.
Okay.
I can't wield a sword in my hand or the hate in my heart anymore. I saw a way of compassion, love. And I make different choices now.
Easier? Is your life easier now?
Easier?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, go on, sure.
In some ways, it's a lot harder. But I find the face of Jesus in my eyes when I'm tempted to ignore the needs of others, to strike back when I hurt, to get revenge when I'm insulted or injured. I see the face of Jesus, and he calls me to make a choice of compassion and mercy. I know this. In Jesus, I am forgiven the dark past and called to a new life. I know that Jesus went to the cross for me. He healed me by the death and resurrection. But he did not only heal my ear, he healed my heart.
So, if you could, what kind of message could you leave with us then tonight about all of this?
Well, first of all, I'm nobody important. I didn't have a great speech to give you all. But I know this. When we are tempted to live by the ways of the world, when we are tempted to live in the darkness, we can make a choice to follow the way lighted by Jesus. A light that comes from the truth, that we are healed and whole in Him. In Him, we can dare to live in love. That's the most important message.
Okay. There's a passage I'm reminded of in Colossians. It says, put on as God's chosen ones, those who are holy and beloved, put on compassionate hearts, put on kindness and humility and meekness and patience, and bear with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgive each other, as the Lord has forgiven you. So you must also forgive one another. And above all of this, all of these things, put on love, which binds it all together and has it live and experienced in harmony.
That's it. That's the life is found in Jesus' touch. That's life. I pray for all people.
Thank you, Malchus, for your time. I appreciate it for coming here tonight.
Thank you.
All right.